Alright, so as promised, if you checked out part one of this video, I was talking about how we hired
Another one.
and managed our employees, the hiring process and the managing process. In this video, I'm going to be telling you about one of the worst situations we had with an employee that we went through the entire hiring process with. It was pretty great initially, and then when we went through the firing process, all the issues that happened and why I'm now extremely paranoid about hiring full-time employees in China.
Still not stopping, this year I can't be out of pocket. Just wanna stay in topic, don't wanna see more pain in coffins. Me, Harv and George go shopping, bags get dropping, I don't wanna hear about nothing. Talking rubbish, sometimes I can't forget I'm stuck in. Seeing your girl in town, she's bugging. Hope someone helps her out or something. One of them is kinda mad. I wanna see more crepes and hats. I wanna do more sets, get bags. Save it up, invest in flats. Move out to somewhere there's no tax. Think I'm about to go mad. I don't wanna forget that all I've planned to do this. No plan B, it's rap. Don't wanna sing, don't wanna chat.
I had to move locations, but still wanted to get this video out today. Obviously, there's a little bit of background music. I'm at a Turkish restaurant, I was having dinner. So, okay, I'm gonna jump into it. Basically, what happened with this particular employee was, this was towards at the beginning of 2017. I went through an extensive hiring process. We got to a stage in the company where we needed to have at least 3 full-time employees. Prior to that, I'd only had 1 full-time employee and 1 or 2 part-time people. But we were expanding and the projects were a lot. In fact, we had our largest client at the time needed a full-time dedicated employee for their project. So that was one of the things. So I went through my entire hiring process. That time I wasn't as extensive as I am now when it comes to the hiring process. But, you know, I still went through a couple rounds and everything, and then we hired 3 people just before Chinese New Year. After Chinese New Year, they started working full-time, signed contracts, 1 year each, which is pretty standard here. Pretty standard in most places. Now, the thing that I didn't understand was specific labor laws around full-time employees in China. So it's the laws were very lax about, I want to say we're talking maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago. Employment laws were more favorable to the employers. After, you know, China has obviously grown and you know, they began to understand the importance of having stricter labor laws, and the companies were taking advantage of a lot of employees. The government made an adjustment to the laws and made it maybe a little bit of an overcorrection, but made it more favorable towards employees. When I say employees, I mean specifically office workers, not necessarily factory workers, because factory workers still have a lot of issues when it comes to employment laws and labor laws. But yeah, specifically with office workers. So we hired this person. Initially, she was great. She was on a 2-3 month probation. And after about 2 months, we said, you know, you've been great, like you've been fantastic. She's managing this project at this stage almost entirely by herself. She had experience working in a trading company prior to this, but it wasn't she hadn't been working long enough. And it was a foreign-owned trading company as well. So she didn't have a lot of the sort of bad habits that you'd expect if somebody's working in a Chinese company for a long time. After about 3 or 4 months into her full-time position, is after we hired her properly, we moved offices and we moved into the space that we're in right now. And we also hired more people. So we now had about 6 or 7 full-time employees. My intern come in from the UK, Marcello, Italian dude who was studying in the UK. And you know, things were gravy, but then we started to notice, getting angry, sometimes having disagreements is normal, and I encourage it. I want my employees to be able to express themselves, but it was happening a little bit too frequently. And then the biggest thing for me was I started getting complaints from the other employees in the office. I got 1 or 2 complaints from the other employees in the office. And you're talking an office of 6 people, 7 people. You know, we had a bigger office space, but we're still all in the same room, right? So it's very easy to pick up an energy when, you know, somebody's coming into office with a certain type of energy. And maybe their attitude has changed towards their work. So after I got those initial complaints, I approached her and I sat down and had a discussion with her and asked her, how's everything and is everything okay in her sort of personal life and things like that. And if you wanted to talk about anything, if you wanted to handle some stuff at home, please let me know. She expressed to me that she didn't necessarily want to talk about her personal life that deeply with her boss, which is fair enough. I just said to her that, the thing is, at the end of the day, I'm here if you want to have those discussions. At the same time, you have to understand that you work in an office with other people, and this is a startup, and your energy affects people, and it's very easy to notice. And she agreed that maybe, she had to do some readjustments and sort of work out a few things. For a couple weeks, everything was fine. The next issue that I had was we got complaints from one of the suppliers that she was handling. So for that particular project, we had about 3 suppliers, and the main factory that we're working with, who I have a very good relationship with up to this day, our contact at the factory contacted me and said, hey Rico, we've been having some issues with this employee. Like, we just feel like she's not necessarily following the systems that we developed, and it's making it more difficult for us to work. Can you have a conversation with her, or maybe even bring somebody else onto the project? So that was a big deal. Obviously now you have complaints from internal situations with employees, and then we have complaints from our suppliers. So now what I did was I contacted the other 2 suppliers that she'd been working with closely and just asked, how's the working relationship? Do you have any suggestions? Have you had any issues recently that I should talk to her about? And they confirmed my suspicions and said, yeah, things have changed. She's not necessarily giving us all the information. She's maybe slow to respond. Her attitude isn't the best when we request for certain things. So that was obviously a big issue. Then I decided to talk to, some of my other employees and ask, what their thoughts were around the situation, specifically our most senior employees at the time. Senior employees also said the same thing. So now I have the complaints from our supplier partners, and I have complaints from multiple employees. Sat down with her a second time, told her, this is the second time in 2 months, in really a month and a half that we were having this discussion. This is what I've been told. I sent her screenshots I showed her screenshots and things like that, messages that I gotten from suppliers, and she denied it. She said, no, I don't know what they're talking about. I feel like I've been doing my work as usual. It was a weird situation for me because, I'm presenting this person with evidence that multiple people are complaining about something that she's doing, and she's not even acknowledging that it's a possibility. So I told her, this is the second time, you have to sort of step up your game. Otherwise, we're going to have a serious assessment of your position in the company. She said that part of it might also be that she wanted to take on other projects because she felt that she was sort of pigeonholed into this one project that she'd been working on for 5-6 months. My thing was, despite her working on that project for that time period, she's still making more money than everybody else in terms of commissions because the project was so big. And I felt that with her working on that project for that long, it would be very difficult to now bring in another person to the project. She had an establishing relationship with the company, with our client. She had established relationships with the suppliers. So the next thing was, I said, we'll try, alleviating some of the work that you do on the project. She's still going to be 80% involved, and we had another employee start to help her with that specific project, and took over some communication with some of the smaller suppliers we're working with. So that went on for a while. Maybe about a month or 2 later, I got a complaint from our client. So now about her, and our client basically was saying the same things that the staff had said, and the same things that the suppliers had said. So now we have three incidents in the space of about 4 months, and I'm not seeing much improvement from her. And she would improve for a while, and then sort of fall back into whatever bad habits she had started to form at the time. And it was also strange because her attitude was so different from when she was on probation, right? When she was on probation, she was a model employee, and maybe even a month or 2 after going off of probation, she was a model employee. So that put me in a very, very tough spot. I decided to do one last internal review with senior employees and we all came to the conclusion that she's not going to change. One of the biggest and most important things I think in a startup is the culture, the environment that you create in an office, and we created a very positive, open, fun environment. So if you have somebody who's not doing their work to the best of their ability, and then they're also causing, issues with employees, suppliers, and clients, we had to let her go. So I sat down with her and told her, this is the third incident in 3 months. We're gonna have to let you go. So just to preface this, at the time when I was hiring people, we were only registered in Hong Kong, and I told all of the employees that were hiring at the time, I told them everything up front, because I know for a lot of Chinese employees, it's important for them to be working with a company that is already registered in mainland China. And also, this was 3 years ago when I hired. At the time, the laws around like freelance work or Hong Kong companies working with Chinese employees weren't very solid or clear. So the biggest issue is obviously if you're a freelancer, how are you paying your taxes to the government? So the Chinese government hadn't caught up to that because it was such a new thing. It's not like in the West or in places like the Philippines where freelance work had been going on for a while. So it's relatively easy to, as a foreign company in another country, to hire an employee in these countries and have them be a freelancer, and for them to still pay taxes to the government on the money that they're making. So it was kind of a gray area. But I always told my staff that, hey, we're going to register at mainland like this year. And at this time when I was letting her go, we were actually going through the process of registering the company in mainland. So I let her go. She disagreed with everything that I said, which to me just underlined the reason why we had to let her go. Because at the end of the day, it's like, even if you think you're wrong, if you're presented with that much evidence and people are giving you clear reasons as to why what you're doing isn't working, I think you should at least try to improve, at least try to take on some advice and make an effort. So she left. Cut to maybe I would say 1 or 2 days later, she sent me a long WeChat message and basically threatened to sue the company. And on the preface that, one, she felt that, and by the way, we had, again, labor contracts with all of the employees, but she felt that, one, the company had fired her for unjust reasons, and then two, she hinted at it, but she didn't say it directly, like the fact that we were operating in this gray area of being a Hong Kong company and having employees in mainland China, but not being fully registered in mainland China. And according to our contract at the time, we had listed out situations where we would let go of an employee, but we hadn't specifically laid out like a step-by-step plan to say, like, if you have X warning, second warning, third warning, and these are the reasons why you're getting these warnings, then we have reason to let you go out of your contract. I was perplexed by the situation. She's threatening to basically ruin us. And I was like, are you really trying to destroy the company? If you destroy the company, you're also destroying the welfare of 4 or 5 other people that you've been working with for months and some of them almost a year. Some of these people have become close friends of hers. And she took a while to think about it, I guess, and then she came back, and the original thing that she was saying is she basically came back and said, fuck you, pay me. And so I'm looking at her and being like, all right, so she was extorting us essentially. She came up with this figure according to a friend of hers who I guess is a lawyer or something like that. And she came up with this figure that was basically, it was like 6 times, it was like 2 times 4 months of employment or something like that, and plus commissions and things like that. It came out to something along the lines of $8,000. Any company that's in startup phase, because we've been operating at this stage for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, $8,000 is not a small amount of money. I know that in terms of salary-wise, like Western employees versus Chinese employees, obviously $8,000 is like a smaller salary than, like $8,000 would be, wouldn't be the equivalent of 3 months employment in the West times 2, you know what I mean? But another thing that was going on is we're going through the China business registration at the time, so the cost of that registration was going to cost about 15 grand, so we'd already put in probably 60-70% of that into the process. So we have 8 grand that I'm supposed to pay this person, and I have, an additional probably 8 grand or 7 grand that I have to now invest back into the China business registration process. I mean, I really didn't know what to do, so I consulted a few people, spoke to some people that are like my mentors, people that are been in China longer than I have, and I had this reminder that everything in China is negotiable, right? So I went back to her and I said, look, like, what you're doing is, I feel, not fair. I know that in typical Chinese labor law, at least for Guangzhou, when you let go of an employee, I think you're supposed to give them a month and a half severance. So we ended up negotiating it down from that initial 8,000 or 9,000 to about 4.5, which is essentially about 3 months of her salary, which was still, it's a tough pill to swallow. And then we also set up a payment plan. So essentially I paid her this money over the course of 3 months, but she wasn't working for us. So I was essentially paying her salary for 3 months while we didn't have that person working in the office. But again, this whole situation even underlined the reason why I let her go, and I'm happy that I did it at the time. I'm happy that I pulled the cord, and all of my, at least the senior employees who found out about it, and I guess word spreads, it's a small office. They all were surprised that she was willing to go to that length, and I'm sure she lost some friends during the process of that. But it was a big lesson for me. And at the time, it was very difficult to handle and caused a lot of stress and financial difficulties at that time period because of all the different things that were going on. I mean, we still had this bigger office. We had more employees, so obviously overhead had gone up in the last 3 to 6 months. And then we have this employee that's threatening to sue us, and then we're going through the China business registration. So I'm trying to do all the right things, and then you kind of get slapped in the face. But in the grand scheme of things, I mean, this was end of 2017. We've made so much money since that time period. The company's grown so much. The biggest lesson I learned is just understanding better the labor laws in the country. Like what I've now learned is when you're hiring full-time people, by the way, this specifically applies to full-time people. Now the laws are different in terms of freelancers. It's easier to hire a freelance employee now than it was that time period because there are agencies that you can go through where you can hire a freelance person. I think the government has updated their laws in terms of how freelancers can pay taxes on the income that they're receiving without them having to register themselves as a business entity. Because I think that was the biggest issue before. Part-time and interns in China, these laws don't apply. If somebody's on probation, if they're a part-time employee or they're an intern, those laws don't apply. Like you can let go of a part-time person anytime that you feel appropriate. Or intern, same thing, regardless of the length of what their contract was supposed to be. What I've done now is I typically tend to either have a very long probation period with people, or I tend to keep people as part-time for a very long time until we get to a stage where I feel like I trust them enough to bring them on as a full-time staffer. And then of course we updated our labor contracts, and now we've been registered in mainland for 2 years, so we're pretty safe within that regards, but we have a very clear process in letting go of employees in the state. That kind of thing is probably not going to happen to us now. It was a big lesson, small punishment in the grand scheme of a company's lifetime, right? And I hope you guys can learn from my horror story. I haven't had too many horror stories in China in terms of from the business side of things, but that was definitely a big lesson. The good thing is, I've skipped a lot of these things because I have a lot of mentors that taught me about the stuff before it happened. And a lot of my mentors hadn't been through that exact type of thing before. They had employees that were disgruntled, but never somebody that threatened to sue them on the basis of, the gray area that we were operating in at the time. Yeah, so I mean, that's it. That's my firing employees in China horror story. Again, check out part 1 if you haven't seen it, where I break down our hiring process and sort of the websites we use and the best ways to go about doing that if you want to hire somebody in mainland China. And I'm signing off. It's Sunday here, pretty late. I think it's about 9 p.m. I'm a little bit tired. I just want to relax and rejuvenate myself for the week. So that being said, if you like this kind of content, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.